All right, and here we are at Senate Institutions, Thursday, March 12th. We are going to be hearing today about capital budget adjustment, specifically hearing from Vermont Housing and Conservation Board regarding Section 10 and an update from last year. And take it away, it's forward yours.
Okay, for the record, I'm Gus Seelig. I'm the Executive Director for the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board. With me are Liz Gleason, the Director of our Farm and Forest Viability Program, who manages a water quality grant program for farmers, and Stacy Stabilio, who is our Associate Director of Conservation and invests capital funds in conservation that have water quality benefits. We're here to discuss our role in water quality. We want to talk a moment about why we're the Capitol Hill at all and who we are as an organization that tries to achieve multiple public benefits. As we move through the presentation, we're an organization very much focused on community development and rural community development. Our enabling statute tells us not just to conserve land or build housing, but to do it in a way that promotes the economy and promotes quality of life in the state. In carrying out the mission, we think that we do enhance the economy. We do protect the vulnerable. Another priority of this administration has been to focus on the needs of making the state a welcoming place and a place that young people want to be in. We're going to switch the order of presentation a little bit because at 3 o'clock we was asked to depart for another meeting. So our slides are going to be a little bit out of order. And I'll apologize to those of you who've seen some of these slides before. The chair wanted me to talk about housing. We've been with several of you in the Ag Committee, so you're going to have the benefit of having some reruns here. But two members of the committee have not heard from us before. So this opening picture, I think, speaks to multiple conservation benefits and caring about the next generation. And we have had an AmeriCorps program for about 30 years, and a group of AmeriCorps graduates decided that the state needed a mentoring program for young people. And they founded the DREAM program, established their own nonprofit. DREAM works at affordable housing sites all over the state. And about 15 years ago, they came to us and said, you know, these kids that we mentor really need a summer camp experience. And we helped them with conservation dollars, buy some land along the lake to establish that summer camp. Last year, we helped them buy an island in that lake. So very much focused on, we use the AmeriCorps program often as one that attracts young people, often first jobs in their career or second jobs. Liz is one of our AmeriCorps alums and now is a member of our management team, but she worked in AmeriCorps, was it 18 years ago?
Something like that.
Working with kids through the Catamount Trail Association.
I was 7 when she was there.
Thank you.
I don't think she looks more than 25 today, so yes, I think 7. Here's our mission, and again, we invest in conservation and rural community development and housing affordability. And this picture, again, speaks to multiple goals being met at the same time. This is a 150-acre property in Morristown, and what we're going to do here is conserve about 150 acres that protects the Lamoille River and water quality benefits there. But there are also 8 vacation rentals on the property, and we're going to turn. This is the only time in my career we're turning vacation homes into permanent year-round residences that will be permanently affordable. So we think that's an unusual thing, but a really good thing at this time that so many properties in the state have become vacation homes, have become Airbnb to turn them back into housing for Vermonters. We get funded in 2 ways. One is through the property transfer tax.
I'm sorry, Gus. What you just talked about. I mean, it's actually I've never heard of that. Is that happening quite a bit, or is this kind of a new phenomenon?
This is a rare thing, but we we always look for opportunities where we can combine housing and conservation. So long ago, Senator, in your district, there was a farm we could serve in Norwich, and the Upper Valley Land Trust carved off 10 acres, and 13 or 14 permanently affordable homes were built at Star Lake Village. 3 or 4 of them were built by Habitat for Humanity. So we're always looking for opportunities to have both our housing and conservation missions happen. It's rare, but this was one of the great things about this is a big priority for an organization called Stowe Land Trust. They brought a lot of philanthropic and fundraising capacity from the Stowe community. And that, because they could raise so much money for the conservation, that made it possible for a housing partner to buy the 8 homes at a reasonable price and resell them at a reasonable price with our assistance. So this is not something that happens every day, but it just, we try to be creative. We try to respond. In real estate, it's always about opportunity.
Sure.
And sometimes you have a special opportunity and you try to take advantage of it.
Thank you.
We're in we get funded in 2 ways, the property transfer tax, and then we're in the capital bill this year, just in the clean water section. One of the rationales for why we're in the capital bill is that the things we invest in terms of real estate will still benefit Vermonters when the bonds are paid off. So when we're conserving land, there'll be a benefit 20 years from now. When we're investing in housing that has to stay affordable in perpetuity, public will still have benefit after the bonds are paid off. To speak to the housing mission, it happens in a number of different ways. And left to right in this picture is a new shelter being built by the Haven in Hartford. This is recovery residence in Bennington, one of 2 recovery residences in Bennington, and among 4 we've funded around the state. Downtown project in Windsor, built next to where the old diner was, a difficult, dilapidated, and polluted site. And then the last picture is Bay Ridge, which is I think it's a 94 unit neighborhood in Shelburne that an old motel used to sit on, that was used for about 12 years by the state of Vermont for people in the GA program. It was a 5-acre site, and during the pandemic, we moved that program across the road to a different motel and built 94 homes, including 26 home ownership opportunities that I think speak to our workforce housing mission in a big way, although the housing and home ownership, the rental and home ownership part of this, 90% of the folks who live there are in the workforce. But among the buyers was a state trooper, 2 people who work at Wake Robin, a chef at Shelburne Farms, a teacher, a nurse. So the full range of the workforce, and a child care worker, single mom, working with child care, bought a home there. This is what we've done with the resources you've provided us writ large over the course of the last 5 years through the pandemic, when there was a ton of funding. And what I would ask you to take away from this slide is we have a large focus on home ownership and on homeowners in manufactured home communities. We work on rental housing, but we also work with people who are really struggling. And some of you have probably met the parents group that has been working around this building on resources for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We've funded 3 feasibility for 3 pilot projects a few years ago. We've now funded 6 projects across the state with this group to house this very vulnerable population that a generation ago lived in the Brandon Training School. At either end of the state, we are involved often in what are white elephant structures. Senator Ingalls is very familiar with Sacred Heart in Newport. He tells me he, as a realtor, brought a lot of people through who could never make the numbers work. Ben High in Bennington sat vacant for 30 years and is now being redeveloped as housing, as well as other community uses. I think there'll be a child care facility, among other things, in the building. And this is who we serve, and this just tries to take the lingo we talk in about area median income and translate it into what does that mean in terms of incomes we serve and occupations that can be served by our programs. And when you look at our rental portfolio, what you'll find is we house a lot of disabled and retired people, but we are also housing what I think of as the essential workforce, people, cafeteria workers, working in restaurants, all the essential jobs that you can't do your work remotely, but that we all depend upon. Just to tell you, things are happening all over the state. On June 3rd in Waterbury, we will open 26 homes, and the fellow who's interested in radio in the committee, this site is where Rusty Parker lived
Oh, Jesus.
all his life, and then could walk over to WDEV. Stone Crop Meadows is a 200+ unit development in Middlebury that we were the anchor of, and what we try to do often is to be the catalyst that helps a larger project happen. In Putney, after 2 years in the courts, we're building 25 new homes. And this is again, the dual goals that you asked me about. 1 acre will be left as a community garden, and this is where the farmer's market happens in the summer as well there. And then Post Apartments is the old VFW building that will open, is getting leased up right now in Burlington. Across our conservation mission, the thing that I'm most proud of, I think, this year was our support for Vermont Adaptive, which works at no cost with veterans who've been disabled. Their services are free. When I speak to rural community development, the East Calais General Store is among a half a dozen kinds of projects like this we've done around the state, where the community raised a ton of money, and we helped them through the historic preservation part of our mission and the housing part of our mission, because there's 3 apartments here that got revitalized along with the community reopening the store. The Whetstone Brook speaks to the part of the capital budget we're in Brattleboro. This was the home of Sir Sasimo Lumber. And a lot of a berm was removed, a lot of fill was removed. It's 12 acres. It'll now function as a park, but it's also going to give the Whetstone Brook a place to go when it rains too hard. And then Mighty Food Farm in Shaftesbury is a young woman. Maybe she's not quite as young as I remember when I met her, but she'd been farming on leased land in a neighboring Pownell for about a decade before she was able to use Farmland Access Program to buy this farm. So with that, I'm going to stop, turn it over to Liz, and we'll flip ahead to your part of this presentation.
It's good. Thanks, Gus. Bring my phone just to keep me on track with time. All right. For the record, I'm Liz Gleason. I run our Farm and Forest Viability Program and Rural Economic Development Initiative at VHCB. And it's time to beginning here. Great. There you go. Okay. I'm going to tell you about our work generally in this program, and then there's a slide specifically on the capital funding and water quality grants that we make. But our program is broader than just the water quality grants. Farm and Forest Viability Program was established almost 24 years ago after we had been doing farmland conservation for quite a while. And there was a big group of people that got together and realized there was more support that we wanted to offer to ensure that not only would we have land and agriculture in perpetuity, but that the businesses operating on that land were able to navigate really intense market pressures and have vibrant businesses growing food for their communities. And then we added forest about 12 years ago in an effort to work with the whole spectrum of folks in the working landscape. We also work with food businesses that are processing a lot of local food. So farm, food, and forest. But we couldn't add food to the title because that would be too long. You can see on this slide, this is Rebot Farm down in Brattleboro. We worked with Rebot Farm a couple of years after they got started. They are a small dairy. They also have a farm store. They grow a small amount of veggies, and they really needed to figure out how to take this business to the scale that was right for them, that would be profitable, allow them to pay themselves, allow them to sell food in their community. So they did business planning with us and really helped to figure out what that profitable stage and size was for them. And we also run a small grant program that when folks finish a business plan, they can apply for a small amount of capital to implement key projects. So we help them buy a walk-in freezer for their new farm store that brings people from downtown Brattleboro and the surrounding area out to their really incredibly beautiful farm. You can see a few examples down at the bottom there on the kind of impact that we track. These are all very financial. We also track impacts around quality of life and definitely find that there's a lot of benefit to working with a business coach that's more around quality of life, figuring out how to take a day off, figuring out how to be able to go see your kids play a soccer game, whatever it is that makes your business more sort of holistically viable in the long term, because we really want these businesses to be able to succeed over the long term. And in the short term, what we see in the year after completing our program is that last year, 71% of businesses we worked with grew. A lot of people do come to us in growth stage, and some people actually come to us to shrink to get to a more effective size for where they're at. 80% added new jobs. And on average, the folks we worked with increased their sales by over $50,000. This doesn't have any data about profitability, but we see really strong profitability increases too. And people accessed over almost $5.5 million in grants and loans. We have to do a lot of support to people who are accessing capital. How do you prepare a really good loan package? How do you get people the sort of business and financial management skills that make them a really good candidate for loans and grants and other capital? This is a slide that just sort of shows our structure as a program. The Farm and Forest Viability Program is housed at VHCB, but we use a collaborative network structure to deliver the shared program model. So these 5 organizations in the middle here, we've been working with for quite some time, and they all have staff. They all have folks on staff who say every year, we want to deliver the Farm and Forest Viability Program at NOFA or the Intervale or UVM or CAE or Land for Good. And they work together too. We do really robust professional development to make sure that they're growing their skills, that they can adequately refer people back and forth. A lot of times, we do a lot of transfer planning where we're working with multiple generations at once. And we might even bring in 2 business planners, one to work with the exhibit and mentoring. And then, there's people who aren't ready for this program, might even be like too big for this program. They need a different kind of coach. We also fund other organizations. So those other partners providing really wide range of technical assistance to businesses at all scales and of all types in the working landscape. And we work with usually between 150 and 200 businesses a year. This is getting to the capital dollars, water quality grants. In 2017, when we were sort of turning as a state to figure out how to respond to phosphorus in Lake Champlain and what we were going to do about it collectively as part of the clean water budget. We're basically part of many people that I'm sure you hear a lot about who are helping to implement the clean water planning around Lake Champlain and lots of other waterways. And we were tasked to develop a farmer water quality grant program that could both help augment existing funding sources for this kind of thing, like NRCS and the Agency of Ag's best management practices, or work with folks who had really important water quality projects on their farm that might not be a great fit for NRCS or Agency of Ag for one reason or another. So we've been doing that since 2017. We've awarded about $5.5 million directly to farmers during that time for their projects. You can see down here that this leverages a lot of money. This is just last year, not overall. So last year we put out just over $600,000 in water quality grants to farmers, and those projects that they were doing were much bigger. And they were working with USDA and NRCS. They were working with the agency. They were getting loans. They were using farm cash. So it leveraged over $3.5 million of additional on-farm investment. And this is Savory Farm over in Cornwall. They were doing a project with the Agency of Ag to really improve their barnyard area, make sure there was no runoff, and to improve their overall manure management and cow housing. So they were adding a covered barnyard that would do composted manure to help keep manure more solid, which is helpful for management in some cases. It really made some significant improvements to the barnyard, and we were able to help fund the pieces of that the Agency of Ag doesn't fund. We can come in and help get those projects across the finish line. So we work really closely with NRCS, Agency of Ag, and farmers, and conservation districts are also pretty involved in this kind of work. A couple more examples. Grass Cattle Company in Charlotte is a grass-fed beef business. I actually worked with Steve Schubert when we both were picking berries on Adams Berry Farm together when it was down at the Intervale, and now he runs this really great grass-fed beef company. This was another bedded pack that dealt with some issues in the barnyard where they were experiencing like a concentration of manure, and that's not something you really want. You want to really manage where that manure is going. Bedded packs can help do that in the right circumstance. Pegasus meats, they do chickens and pigs. I love this picture of them. And we help with some covered winter housing. So the pigs could get fresh air in the winter, but were contained in a specific spot, and they could really manage that manure. They're islands, so just being really careful about where manure is going. And then Bread and Butter Farm up in Shelburne got a water quality grant a couple of years ago now to help establish grazing, keeping cows out of wet areas, putting cows where they can really contribute to great soil health, which helps with water retention and decreases runoff. So that's kind of an example. We also fund a lot of manure pits to make them work better, and other kinds of equipment that helps with water quality. We've got some time. So the Rural Economic Development Initiative is another program. Was created in this building to address the need of small towns being able to access big federal dollars for their projects. There were a bunch of people, including Ted Brady, Senator Starr, who are realizing that there were certain funding sources at a federal level that Vermont could tap into more than we were doing. Some examples included the USDA Value Added Producer Grant, which is for farms and other working lands businesses, and a bunch of more like municipally oriented awards. So we set up this grant writing program. We're primarily around to help small towns and working lands businesses put together successful grant applications with a focus on federal dollars, but we also will help people go after state and philanthropic in some cases. And since 2017, we've spent about—
I stupidly locked my keys in my car at that time.
Well, I've heard they're very friendly and community oriented, and they would love to help you if that ever happened.
They
Yeah.
did call and have somebody come.
Yeah, so Miscellaneous Falls Diner, it's this really interesting historic train car diner, and a bunch of community members have come together to say, we don't want this to go away. We want this community gathering space to keep existing in the future. So they wrote a grant to help renovate this space. They're still kind of doing the work and renovation and local fundraising, and it is going to be a really exciting project. I can't wait to go get pancakes there. So the 1.2 million we've spent, this includes through VHCD state allocation, as well as we brought in some additional money from USDA's Community Facilities Program, and also the Agency of Ag's Municipal Technical Assistance Program. That money has gone out the door to grant writers who have helped communities then access $35.5 million for their community development projects, which is really exciting. We really focus on sort of downtown revitalization. We often work in collaboration with historic preservation. We also work with all kinds of working lands businesses and outdoor recreation projects. And I think that's my last slide. And I have a couple more minutes if anyone has any questions for me before I take off.
I liked hearing a part about leveraging federal dollars. As you're aware, in our ag committee, we have one project that we were really desperately seeking hard to find more dollars for. And we'll always be a willing partner, with another partnership who understands that landscape better than us. And so we will always, at any time that, you need somebody to, partner with, to give thought to, and please let us know. I think, especially in, the USDA, I just think there's millions and millions of untapped dollars available to our state that are either, the process is too hard. The task is too big. Our farms aren't big enough. I just think there's a lot of wasted dollars right there that can go here in the state. And as we know, $1 million in Vermont goes a lot farther than it does in Minnesota. And, yeah, we would be always willing to, listen to any of that.
Senator, in a different context, we'd love to talk to you about our enabling legislation for this program, which we'd like to broaden just a little bit. One of the limitations on us is we're supposed to run towns 5,000 or less, so we actually do have some farms that are in towns larger than that. So we're looking for a couple of tweaks that
Absolutely.
help us broaden. So
Absolutely.
I'll
We
follow
have-
up with you separately on that matter.
Please, we have, prided ourselves, and we worked really, really hard. We have a great committee. They're sick of me saying that, but we do. And we have worked really hard, whether somebody's making 12 loaves of bread or, milking 5,000 cows. We're between that. And, we understand, and I think a lot with what you folks do. I mean, you guys do incredible work on properties that are, as Gus had mentioned, are really out of the reach of urban markets. But we understand as a committee that we're going to keep agriculture viable in the state of Vermont with the cost of what things are, that sometimes you have to start out small and grow into something bigger. So yeah, absolutely. You'd be interested in listening to that.
All right, I'll switch back to your slides, Stacy.
Right, and you can take your charging cord with you.
Oh, that's
They don't
great.
have enough
Great idea.
juice to do the presentation. Great, thank you, Liz. Hello all, thanks for having us. For the record, my name is Stacy Sabula and I'm the Associate Conservation Director at VHCD. So I'm going to talk to you about our conservation programming. You've already heard from Liz on the viability side, but I want to give an overview of how that program works and how it intersects with the clean water funding and just how critical that funding source is in making so many of these projects happen. So what you can see on the screen now is a picture of the Memphis Floating Classroom up in Newport. And that's a really cool hands-on learning program that is running there by a nonprofit. And we were able to give funding to that organization to help them buy equipment for their boat and some other educational curriculum. And they take kids from both Vermont and Quebec out on the water to do science-based hands-on learning, really cool program. Yeah, so that was funded through our Clean Water Service Provider program up in the Memphremagog. So we were designated with that position a couple of years ago in response to, which I'm sure you're aware, focusing on phosphorus reduction. And so we've been managing that program and that really the impetus or the focus of that work is to give out grants for non-regulatory water resource protection and cleanup, which we think is a really important sector of that work that is working with folks who are, through voluntary measures, whether it's a municipality that wants to make some infrastructure changes, like put in bigger culverts, or nonprofit groups that want to do some tree plantings to help mitigate water pollution. So it's a great way to get money into those communities, and in many cases match other federal and state funding as well.
My wife and I actually support that vote in other ways because it is it's an amazing vessel that's on the water up there. And
Have you been out on it?
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I look right at it. I live
Cool.
I live on it. And yeah, so we do that and we actually support it financially through other means in my business life to make sure that stays viable. And plus their classroom, their little museum that they have as well. So, yeah,
That's
so,
cool. Well, I hope to someday check it out. It sounds like a really fascinating
amazing
program.
trip in a boat. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, we went to all that, but we had some fun times.
cool.
So, yeah, so the list on the side of the screen there is just all the different programming that we have related to conservation, and I'm going to focus mostly on our natural areas programming as well as farmland conservation, where we do a lot of this water quality related work. So we love giving real life examples. So I think it's the best way to tell the story. So this is the Wolcott Community Forest, which I think is a great example of so many of the projects that we're doing now, which layer a variety of different conservation values. In this case, actually, this project, as Gus pointed out, another project that had both a conservation element to it and affordable housing. This one does as well. So this helped the town of Wolcott get a community forest. It's huge. It's over 700 acres. They worked with the Trust for Public Land as well as the Northern Rivers Land Trust. It's permanently conserved. It has amazing water resources, over 100 acres of wetlands, 5 miles of streams. As you can see, kids in the community get out on the land. It's actually really strategically located right next to the elementary school, so kids can go out and do programming during the day. And in addition to all of that, it also has had 2 acres along the road that the conservation partners decided, hey, like actually that 2 acres along the road would be great for an affordable housing unit. So they partnered with the Lamoille Habitat for Humanity group, and I believe the housing is being constructed up there right now. So definitely an all-around win, and this project was supported by the Capitol bill because it had such great water resources on it. Okay, so why are we doing this work? And maybe this is obvious, maybe not. But as I mentioned, as I think you're all aware, there's a huge push in the state to reduce phosphorus pollution in both Lake Champlain and Lake Memphremagog, and so much of that work that we're doing is coming from that process, and we're proud to be a part of that, as are our partners. We understand that science shows that protecting riparian buffers, forested areas along streams and rivers, that's helping improve water quality. And so a lot of our projects on conservation land, especially on farms, are putting in a minimum 50-foot buffers, which is exceeding what the state requires for farms, which is a much lower threshold. And so a lot of our projects are advancing these goals of increasing water quality. We also know that we want to be preserving big areas of wetlands, like what we saw here in Mount Helier with the flooding in 2023, 2024. There was a lot of talk about actually protecting all that land up along the North Branch, where the North Branch Nature Center is, if you're familiar with that. Like that 200-acre parcel so close to town probably saved a ton of water being in downtown, where we already had way too much water. So really focusing on more areas where we can be keeping floodwaters and retaining floodwaters and preventing runoff and keeping our water quality, getting our water quality cleaner, which we know we have to do. And this project in Athens, I've heard people say Athens, but I think it's Athens. The Lily Pond Highlands is a project that we funded for the Windmill Hill Pinnacle Association, which is a land conservation organization down there. And they do a lot with trails. They have like a 14-mile ridgeline trail in that area. And this particular project had a 600-acre wetland complex that the funding from the Capitol bill helped support. Okay, so switching gears a little to talk about how we work on conserved farms. And I think I'll start with the graphs on the right, because I just like what this data shows about kind of the overall scope of what's happening in Vermont conserved farmland. We're really proud of this and proud of the work that our partners like VLT, Vermont Land Trust, are doing to work with farmers on these issues. And the farmers are great as well, being wonderful cooperators wanting to make these changes to improve water quality. So, we know in Vermont, we are obviously an agriculture heavy state, and still, lots of dairy farms, et cetera, although we're losing many as well. We also know that every farm in the state practically has forest land associated with it, or wetlands, or other wildlife habitat resources. And so many of these farms are really contributing to natural resources and to supporting and enhancing biodiversity. They're not just simply a cornfield or a piece of hay ground. It's supporting a much bigger network of a natural set of natural resources. So what the graph on the left is showing is that of all the conserved farmland in the state, 14%, only 14% is in annual crops. 10% is actually wetland acreage, 33% is forested, and then another 43% is pasture hay ground. Again, which many pastures and hay grounds can support herds and other wildlife. And then in terms of the water impacts on these farms, since 2019, over 80 miles of buffers have been established on these farms, again, going above and beyond what the required agricultural practices are, and about 1,400 acres of wetlands protected. And a lot of these projects were supported with the capital bill as well. And this farm, actually, it's mostly a sugar bush, but they also have some beef animals in Williamstown. The Graham Project benefited from this source of funding. It's a multi-generational farm. The farm actually was able to transfer hands from the elder generation to the son and nephew as part of this process. That's another cool part of farmland conservation. It's the sale of the development rights often infuses money into the property, into the business, and makes it more affordable for the next generation to get on the land. And that happened here. And again, this had a number of great water resources, streams, headwater streams that were really critical to protecting water downriver, and a handful of vernal pools. And it's also right next to Ainsworth State Park. Okay, so moving on to a different kind of program. This is more of, I guess I'd call like a niche aspect or niche area of our farmland work, farm retirements. The bulk of the farmland conservation work we do is supporting keeping farms economically viable, like Liz talked about. But in some cases, it doesn't necessarily make sense for certain farms, given their location, to continue to be in that site. We know with all the increased flooding around here, the farm that was set up 200 years ago when we weren't having floods like that all the time, perhaps made more sense. And I think there's just a lot greater awareness about like, hey, we need to have manure not right next to the water, and all of that. And so there is funding available through the capital bill where we're able to provide grants to organizations who actually end up buying out farmland and restoring it to its natural habitat. So this is an example of that. The Tangway Farm up in Brunswick and the NEK, former dairy farm up on the Connecticut River, just a gorgeous, as you can see, gorgeous site with these wonderful oxbows, which are kind of rare now because so many rivers have been straightened and they don't get to meander like that. And with the Nature Conservancy, who we awarded the funding to, they're going through a process of restoring along the flow of the river into floodplain forest habitat, which is a rare habitat type. So much of it's been turned into either development or ag fields. And this was a farm that was getting flooded pretty frequently, and he actually ended up he's retained a portion of the upland piece of the property. So he was able to adapt and has other land that he was able to farm. So it isn't as though he completely closed up shop. It was just a retrofit of what he was doing, and ended up making more economic sense for him to sell the bottom land. But yeah, so we're excited to have this as a tool in the toolbox as well. And yeah, so this is really a summary, and I'd encourage you to look more closely at this in your packet. I won't read every number here, but this is just the overview of what we've accomplished in the last year. And I guess something I would point out to Senator Ingalls' point, the leverage and federal leverage is really crucial here. Specifically, our farmland program, as you can see, leveraged almost $5 million in federal funds through NRCS, Natural Resources Conservation Service. So that is just an integral part of our funding. And to your point, Senator Ingalls, it's not very easy for landowners to navigate this, but we have great staff at the land trusts who are good at it and are able to sort of do some coaching and mentorship with landowners to help get them in the system. And I think we in Vermont, I'm very proud of the drawdown that we have of these funds. We're considered,
We'd like to find more when we'd be a willing partner to whatever we can do.
Yeah.
We would love to partner with you
yeah,
at any level that we can.
that's great. Well, we appreciate that. And we will keep that in mind. And then likewise with our natural areas program, also get money from like Forest Legacy and other national programs as well. as
Saturday,
nonprofit.
we'll milk any cow that there was to.
Is that right?
He's a milker.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I have done that
Yeah,
for the first time,
is that right?
last year.
Was that a farm in your district?
Well, I at like every fair that I went to.
Yeah.
And yes, and at the
Building
Billings
Oh, yeah.
in Woodstock,
Oh, that's a lovely place.
Yes.
Yeah.
it was interesting.
I've only, even though I used to run our ag program, I have to say I've only milked a couple of times and it's hard. It's harder than it looks. You get kicked. Yeah.
I didn't get kicked, which was lucky.
Yeah.
I did step in some stuff.
Yeah.
It's not fun. So
Yeah. Oh, well, that's fun. All right. So let me see. I think that's it. Yeah, we kind of cruised through that. So Gus and I are happy to answer questions or
I know
take
you have,
feedback.
and I have a question that may go into our whole role with water quality and support the conservation district. So
Yeah.
can you talk about that?
Yeah. Did you want to wait for Wendy on that and get back, or we want to start the conversation?
Is Wendy on? No, she must be watching. Yeah, well, I mean, we could start the conversation now because it's brief. For me, it's just really questions. It's kind of funny how our committee in the morning overlaps with this. It's always weird because I don't remember where the conversation started.
Well, I think it started in both. It probably started with the conservation districts coming into us and then we're bringing it forward. And so,
Yeah, but the bottom line with it is there's the conservation district in Barton's by a house. Then they did have their office. And my question is, just how can we help do that? And is the HCB a group that could do it? I think you know a little bit about this, so
I know a little bit about it. I don't know the building.
maybe I don't know if somebody
what I
could
would-
clarify it.
I know a little bit about it. I don't mean to step on you, but just to bring some clarification, it's a building that the fairgrounds owns. It's at the start of the fairgrounds. The fairgrounds, it's too much building for them. And, but they'd also like to be able to still use the building. Conservation districts in that area are without a home. They've actually had the Grayson Pool and Grain have been given a spot, an office to operate out of for the time being. And they are all looking to buy this building, I think, for rough numbers of, they're looking for $275,000, but I think the purchase of the building is probably $200,000 and then upfits and all of that to bring it into compliance with what they would use would be $275,000 between the heating system and whatever else that they would have. I haven't seen all the breakdown of it. The fairground would retain use of the building as well, but the conservation district would use it as their office and in that way. So, they had come to the ag committee and then I think it come to this committee as well, looking for capital, investment. So that's how it come to this.
So let me say a few things, and if it's the will of the committee to make this happen and you're asking us to help, then I think my board is willing to do that. We have a couple of different relationships with this committee. We are administering some of the clean water budget. We are also the clean water service provider for Lake Memphremagog because the Regional Planning Commission didn't want to do it in that part of the state. So we have a staff person who works on water quality enhancements and works often with the district. The other overlap to our mission, and I'm not sure that this building counts as historic, but as you saw with the presentation, we funded East Dallas Community, the old store there. We funded building down in Senator Harrison's Way, the former Grange building, I think, that's being used as a community center up in Morrisville, the old Grange building there has been turned into a center for the arts. So my understanding is that they want to use this both as offices, but also for the Northeast Kingdom Collaborative and
Yes,
other communities. So it would be a little bit of a stretch for us. It's not directly on point to our mission, but if you put in some language in the statute that asks us to do this, and you and the administration and the other body all agree it's a good expenditure of public funds, then we can play that role and would be happy to do so. So we have some relationship to it, and I can work with your staff, or the chair or vice chair on the appropriate language, whether it should go in the clean water section or go in some other section.
and just to be fair, not to, that dollars would be not an additional dollars, but taken from dollars that have already been committed. Correct. I mean, it would be dollars that we would be, you're not gonna write a check for that. We're gonna have to, find the dollars within what our bill.
Within the, right,
We're
yeah,
right.
we cannot, I don't think the administration would be supportive of the funding that we get in this budget for clean water being used instead to buy an office building. So you'd have to figure out that you had room in the budget to do it.
Right.
So I'm not here to advocate for it so much
No.
as to say we can be an administrative entity that can help deliver it if the will of this committee and the will of the legislature is. That is an
We can
important
have that
project.
conversation with chairs and see if.
Yeah.
And
And we'll get some more after, we'll have some more clarifying questions.
Yeah, yeah.
get them back and.
And we should, I was talking with some people from the conservation districts earlier today, so usually what we do, and you may not want it to work this way, and it's fine with me if you want to do it a different way, is when we give a group funding, we usually make it as a deferred loan or a grant with a mortgage, so that if they ever want to convert it for some other use or they no longer want it anymore, the money can come back to the state. I was told earlier today that right now conservation districts are not allowed to have mortgages. And that may get changed in the,
I think they're looking to change some language with that. They've asked us.
Think of hearing them now.
but
Yeah.
if you're asking, can we just make a grant without a mortgage? That's possible. I'm just advising our normal practice would be to have a way to recapture funds if the use was ever gonna, if they no longer want. it.
And I think we can make that language change.
But anyway, but we're happy that we haven't had a detailed discussion about terms with them because
Yeah.
we didn't know if this would happen. So we're happy to work with you and them on the details. If they may want it to just to be a grant with no strings attached. But I leave that to you to let me know how you want to work on that.
I think with the chairs back, we'll have some more
Yeah,
questions.
let's start to the discussion.
Yeah,
All right.
Okay.
Any other questions for
I think, just, again, Gus and I have been doing this for, it seems like a lot of what I've been here with, but I've always appreciated the relationship, for those that, know Gus. His information is always accurate and solid, and we've been appreciative on what you've done. As I've said it to you so many times, as I said to my ad committee, I appreciate him. What I like about your group is you just move, you get things done, and it's even when nobody else is, you guys just seem to get things done, and I've been appreciative of that.
And I've been lucky enough to work with Gus even before I got to the Senate, so I can concur.
Thank you all, and I look forward to getting to know you and working with people across your district as well.
So we weren't actually formally introduced, but I'm John Benson. I represent the Orange District.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you this, knowing Gus and how he does his homework, he knew that. He knew when you were born, what town you were in, where your bank accounts are.
I'm pretty sure I haven't done that much.
I expected that you had already worked together.
But
Well, we've done a bunch of ag work over the years, but I didn't personally do a lot of that.
I look forward to getting to know you, and we do have a footprint in Orange County. I'm happy to talk to you at a different time, more detail about that.
Worked for Du Bois and King for years and did a lot of work, ag work, over the years.
All right, thanks.
All
Thank
right,
you.
well, thank you for your time and attention, and for those of you who heard the same thing twice.
It's always good. It's always good, yeah.
Gonna adjourn.
Always have good, always have good presentation.